This episode of Goosebumps Crew is sponsored by Trophy Smack. Celebrate your wins and losses in style with your own customizable trophies, belts, and rings. Link in the description, but more on that later.
The most thrilling, spine-tingling series ever.
From the pages of R.L. Stein's best-selling books,
And the screams go on forever and ever.
We now return to Goosebumps.
Greetings, Goosebumps fans, young and old, big and small. Welcome back to the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Isaiah Vargas, also known as the Goosebumps channel on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'm joined by the rest of my Goosebumps crew, Goosebumps Aussie fan Bjorn Panic and Shaolin Nick Shaw. Unfortunately, Michael Eloquist, the ultimate Goosebumps man, was unable to join us today, but that's okay because whether or not, we're still going to talk about Goosebumps, of course. Now, today's episode is going to be a kind of a special one because, you know, we here on the podcast, we talk about Goosebumps all the time, whether it comes to the books, the show, the movies, whoever, and we talk to people. Today, we're going to actually go back a little bit. We're going to talk about ourselves. Haha. It's the most selfless thing you can do is talk about yourself. And specifically, we're going to talk about our first Goosebumps experiences. We're going to talk about how we discovered Goosebumps, what our first books were, how we discovered the TV show, and how we got into collecting Goosebumps. So we're going to kind of just take a stroll down memory lane and talk about those things. But before we do, of course, if you guys are not subscribed to the Goosebumps Crew Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, then what the heck are you doing? Seriously, what are you doing? Because if you are a Goosebumps fan, you are going to want to tune into this podcast because, in my opinion, this is the ultimate celebration of Goosebumps that we do here. Because not only do we talk about Goosebumps books, the show, the movies, and all that stuff, but we also have some incredible guests on the podcast. Most recently, we've had Avery Jones, who was the puppeteer Slappy in the Goosebumps movies. We have Eugene Lipinski, who played Mr. Mortman in the Goosebumps episode The Girl Cried Monster. We've had tons of other wonderful guests, including Tim Jacobus, Kai Eric Erickson, the guys over at Trick or Treat Studios, Alan Doucette, and Matt the Wild. So we've had tons of people, and this is episode number 20, so that means there's 19 other episodes that you guys could watch right after this one. So make sure you guys follow the Goosebumps Crew Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Alright, so we're going to talk about, as we said, our first Goosebumps experiences. And I think the best place to start out is by talking about how we, the three of us, discovered Goosebumps, how we first came across it. And since you are undeniably the biggest Goosebumps collector in the room right now, Bjorn, why don't we start with you?
Well, Goosebumps first experience. Should I get ready for story time?
Yeah. Light the fire like Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Wow. It's funny because you run it through your head so many times, like my first experience, Goosebumps, what it means to me, da 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 da. It's like, goddamn, there is so much to say. Like I could have a 2-hour video just in itself doing this. Well, when I was a kid, so we're going back to 1999. So I was only 4, and it's funny because I always thought I was 5 when I started into Goosebumps, but no, because I found a photograph of me and my mom, and she's reading Goosebumps to me, and I checked the back of the photo, and it's stamped 1999, back when you used to actually get a photo that you would pick up. And yeah, it was crazy because I thought, wait, if it's 1999, I was born in 95. I'm literally 4 here. Like, this is crazy. And it was when we went over to New Zealand, actually. I know I'm from Australia, but I discovered Goosebumps in New Zealand. And yeah, we went there for Christmas, and she's reading it to me, and I'm thinking, okay, so I remember when I first discovered it, it was in my cousin's bedroom, who was an 89 baby, so he was well and truly a Goosebumps kid. Like, he was 7, 8, 9, 10 when it was, big. So he actually was like part of the fan club. He had all the books, merchandise. He actually had a full set of those minifigures, those scare pack ones that we're always trying to find. He had like all that really cool stuff that you just can't find now. But I remember, we went over to their place, and I remember like, I wanted to hang out with him. He's the older, cool cousin. And I specifically remember him playing a Simpsons game on the computer. Couldn't tell you what Simpsons game it was, but it was 1999. So I'm assuming, it's a pretty old one.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like, I think from memory, it was like I remember the cover was all yellow, but then I think of just the Simpsons game cover itself. But yeah, this was and it was like a big PC box game, like they used to come in the big cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
And I remember that being right next to his computer, and he's playing the game. And I remember thinking like, oh wow, like the Simpsons. But my parents never let me watch the Simpsons when I was like 4. But I was watching it going, oh my God. And I remember him even saying to me, oi, you're not supposed to be watching this. Remember? And I'm like, yeah, but what am I going to do? What am I supposed to do if I can't watch you play? And he's just like, go read a book. There's a bunch of books over there. And I'm like,
go check out my nudie mags.
Just don't look under the pillow, please. But yeah, no, I remember like him saying that, and I kind of just looked over and I was like, but I'm just trying to imagine my 4-year-old voice saying, I want to watch you play. But yeah, no, I went over and he had just, a stack of books there. And I remember looking at them going like, oh, what are these, Right on top was Night of the Living Dummy. So my love for Slappy was literally born in 1999. Day one, like my immediate introduction was this cover right here.
Very
Tim Jacobus,
nice.
love your work.
Good book to be introduced to.
Oh, yes. I look straight at this, but my cousin, I wish he was here because he would be perfect to be like sitting next to me to tell this part of the story, because he said, I remember looking over and you were just staring at that thing for like the longest time. You weren't flicking through it. You were just staring at that. And he said, I was playing the game and I remember like doing a big section of the game, and I remember turning back and you were still staring at it. And he said, this must have been at least half an hour, 40 minutes. And that's a long time to just be looking at the same thing. And he said, yeah, you were just standing there like a weirdo, staring at this book cover, not reading it or anything. And I remember saying, are you going to like read it? Or can you even read it? Like, you're only 4. And at this time, no, I probably wouldn't have been able to read it. But I was just mesmerized by that. And then I eventually started flicking through them. And I remember seeing like the Ghost next, but he had a whole set. So I would have seen pretty much every book at this point. I was introduced to Goosebumps by seeing almost pretty much every cover from the original 62, along with some Series 2000s, because he had every book that was out at the time. So that was my introduction to Goosebumps, hanging out with my cousin. So my family are always like, anytime we go and see them, they're always like, it's your fault. You started this. You're the evil one. You did this. It's your fault. And he's just like, well, it's crazy. Actually, I'll quickly grab one item because it's just behind me.
I mean, that's just really funny how funny is that you just, by telling your cousin, like, go read a book, and then that starts like a 25-year love for Goosebumps.
And he gave me this card game.
Good thing it wasn't a nudie magazine then. That would have started on you on a different path.
There's his name. It's probably like back to front, but it's Nicholas Unkovich. So there you go, Nick. I'm just giving you a shout out. But this was his card game that he gave me. Yeah, man. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, so this was one of his pieces of Goosebump merch, just to give you guys a little insight there. But yeah, that was my introduction to the series. And then obviously my love for Slappy was immediate. It was like we fell in love right from the get-go, love at first sight, literally. So yeah, I can't explain it enough. That's probably, well, I'll talk about it a bit later, but that's just my first, story about it. But there's something that I'll show you later why I was probably so obsessed with it and why I was like dying to try and find this specific item. But we'll save that for after you guys tell your first stories.
Yeah. My story is, I remember it so vividly. So growing up, it was funny because in kindergarten I was like in terms of reading, I was actually ahead of the other kids. I was reading at like a first grade level in kindergarten, which my teachers were like, "Oh, he's doing so well." But then I think after kindergarten, I started kind of falling out with reading. I think by that time I was getting into I was getting more into like video games, because around that time I got my first Nintendo DS, and I think I also had a Game Boy Advance at the time. So I was kind of just into my video games and watching TV and VHS tapes, because I actually surprisingly had a VCR when I was growing up in the early 2000s. So that was kind of like what overtook things for a while. And but when I got to second grade, and it was just out of the blue, because by this point, you know, kids are starting to read chapter books. They're starting to like really push that like advanced reading. And I just wasn't really there yet. And then one day, I think I finished a test before everyone else did. So I brought my test up to my teacher, and my teacher was like, "Okay, go to the reading corner and pick out a book and read." And I was like, "All right." And usually I would just kind of be like, just pick one and sit in the corner and just kind of be like, yeah, whatever. Until one day, I went over and I saw one of the shelves in the front had these 3 books in particular: Beast from the East, Bad Hair Day, and strangely enough, Deep in the Jungle of Doom, the Give Yourself Goosebumps. These 3 were sitting there, and I think it was actually Bad Hair Day that was in front. So that cover just like hooked me. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, what's with this rabbit? What's his deal? And then, yeah, I flipped through and I was like, whoa, this one has like a neat pattern on the cover, and it's got like this sea monster. And I was like, I gotta like look at these. So I took all 3 of them, and I think I picked Bad Hair Day. And I just started like reading it, and I was just reading and reading and reading. I was mesmerized by this thing. And I think I actually got like almost a halfway through before like the bell rang, and then I had to stop. But I was just like, that was incredible. Like I gotta find more of these. So after that, I would kind of go back to those specific ones, and I would just kind of skim through them. But then we took a trip to the library about a few days later, because I think we went every week. They would just take us to the school library. And I was like, I gotta see if they have some of these books. And sure enough, they had a bunch of like these, you know, the hardcover library ones that schools would have. They were like not the original books. They were kind of like specific hardcover printings for schools. But I'll talk more about that when we talk about the first books we read, because that kind of transitions into that. What about you, Nick?
Oh man, that's been so long ago. You know, I'm not like you young kids. I don't know if I can remember that far back. it's you know. See, I was born in '85, so like I grew up the '90s, as we all know. My first experience with Goosebumps actually came at the Scholastic Book Fair, but I didn't really notice any books. If they were there, I don't even remember seeing them. The only first thing I actually remember seeing was the Haunted Mask sitting on the shelf, and it was just the art that caught my eye. Because I love to draw, like most kids, I love to draw, love to do monsters and things like that. I was still a big Halloween person. Actually, that's my life, you know what I mean? So even back then it was. So it very sank its teeth in and kind of pulled me in. That was like the first book I bought. I actually still have it. It is not in the greatest condition, because as a kid, you don't take care of anything. But I did write inside on the front cover, obviously my name, back when you had to write cursive, because, you know, that was the thing back then. They don't do that anymore. So if I write cursive now, it's Egyptian to some people. But also had, I was in 4th grade at the time. If that wasn't written in there, I would not even remember what grade I was in, what year it was, or anything like that. But it was very impactful, because then I read it, loved it, started getting me into some other ones. So the first experience was at Scholastic Book Fair. It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah,
I mean, man.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember, going to the Scholastic Book Fair. I actually more remember, not the book fair, but I remember, like, I don't know if you guys were, like, if this was just a my generation thing, but, like, the packets you would get in school that would have, like, books that you can order. So you would fill out the order form.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, you'd fill out the order form of the books you want, and then you give it to your parents, and your parents, like, write a check, they send it, or no, they write a check, you bring it to school, you give it to your teacher, and then the teacher sends all the order forms, and then Scholastic brings all the stuff to the school, and then it was like it was almost like Christmas, because, like, you would, one day, all of a sudden, you would never know when they were going to come. But one day, like, at the end of the day, the teacher would just say, like, hey, we have the deliveries from the Scholastic, order. And so she's like, okay, like, here's yours. And I remember, well after the fact, I would, order Goosebumps books through there. So I would get, like, the new book, or, like, I would get, like, some not so new, but, like, recent books. And it was always a treat.
Yeah. I have a bone to pick with Scholastic on that. I have a big bone to pick with them, because I remember when I think it was 2000 and when the DVDs like first came out, and I remember there was Deep Trouble. You could actually order the DVD through the Scholastic catalog, and I remember being like, "Oh my god, I can order the movie and like watch it!" Like my 8-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever brain, and like I remember my mum being like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool, yeah, we'll order that." And so she ordered it for me. It arrives. We put it in the DVD player. Oh, it won't play. It's the wrong region. And I'm like, but it was in this Australian catalog to order it in the Australian school. It should work on the Australian player. No, it was literally the American freaking DVD. And I'm like, why would they even have that? Like, for an Australian catalog?
They messed
It
up.
just made no sense. They messed up. They were like, oh yeah, but they've got to have a region. Like, I know you could get region-free players, but I was like, still, like, why would you put an American release of something in a catalog, like, in Australia? Like, it would have made sense if it was only, for you guys over there, but, like, goddamn, I was like, I cried. I remember said you were crying because you couldn't watch it. Like, we had to go out and buy a region-free player so you could watch it. Because you wouldn't stop crying. And I'm like, yeah, I was a spoiled little shit. Like, when I was a kid, apparently.
I mean, that's kind of weird that they
Wait,
would.
When you were a kid, I'm sorry, look behind you. I think you're still a little spoiled there.
Hey, this is my money now. I got to use my money. I got to work. I got to start selling myself in the corner or something if I want to start paying for more Goosebumps. Hey, Nick, we're going to have to start an Goosebumps
OnlyFans.
OF, yeah, an OnlyFans. And
except we'll change it. We'll call it, we'll call it Goosebumps Fans. So
call it Goosebumps Fan.
You can show people items in your collection. Ooh, yeah.
I'll be like,
a very weird.
Slappy.
Oh, that's a very weird avenue to show off your collection.
If it makes money,
I guess.
Stranger.
Just don't be asking me to be a part of that.
I'll put the haunted mask on, and I'll recreate the famous haunted mask kissing Slappy from the Goosebump movies, like behind the scenes photo. I'll be like,
Or just pull that Jay and Silent Bob Stryback's moment, the Jay dance. Where he does the tuck and everything. Just wear a Slappy mask or a haunted mask or something, Man,
God, this took a dark turn.
This took a very weird turn. Let's move on.
Dark turn.
But I mean, I find it.
This is everyday life.
I don't really find it surprising that Scholastic book fairs and the catalogs and that sort of stuff most likely were a lot of people's first introductions, because that was the time when you as a kid you could get a peek at books that were coming out. And because, I mean, I don't know about everybody's parents, but I know my parents weren't taking me out to the bookstore like every single week when I was a kid. And, but that was like the only way that you could like, wow, these books are coming out. These ones are, like, what ones can I get? And I mean, I even if I remember correctly, there were like Scholastic Book Fair exclusive like Goosebumps books, not like entirely new books, but like they would make specific versions of the original series that they would sell at the book fair. I think that's where like those really thin books come from. They wouldn't have like a ISBN tag, that sort of thing. But I mean, if you have one of those, I think even some of them even say like for Scholastic book sale only, like book fair sale only.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing.
You have like the warehouse sales too. Like Scholastic would sometimes do a warehouse sale, and like I went to one recently. They had Goosebumps, but they only had one book, and it was The Dummy Meets the Mummy, and there was about 200 copies of it, just stacked, of that one book. And I'm like, did they just take one box off the shelf and unload that onto the shelf, and that's it? Like, what the hell? What is this? I mean, and I was like, what? I want to buy like 20 copies of this book? No.
Well, and you know what? It's like, isn't it just funny how we as Goosebumps collectors, like, it's all the same series, but like anything after like Horrorland and after is just kind of like, if it's there, it's like, oh, cool. Anyway, but if it's like original series, even if it's like super beat up, we're just like, give, want.
Yeah.
Because if I go to Half Price Books and I see, like Slappy World, I'm like, who cares? Like, literally let them sit there. I don't know, maybe
a lot of that has to do with just timing, because I mean, obviously anything original, it's hard to beat original, whether it comes to movies, book series or whatever. It's hard to beat originals. So when you look at it that way, and the fact that it's been over 30 years for that original run of books compared to Slappy World or Horrorland, they were still more recent. Maybe in another 20 plus years, they'll have that same feel and nostalgia to kids who grew up on those, like we do with the originals. So
yeah,
maybe
it's just
in
a timing
future,
thing,
maybe.
I think. Because I do the same thing. I see all that, and I'm like, I was like, why don't they have Series 2000 or Give Yourselves or even original series? Even though I have the original, doesn't mean I'm not going to be like, oh, look, there's a really good copy of Werewolf Skin or Monster Blood 4 or something. I'm like, yoink.
Mm-hmm.
Although I've never come across those in half price books because mine suck. But
yeah, mine.
When I look at you guys on your posts on Instagram and stuff, it's like, oh, I'm Isaiah. I got all these super rare, awesome books. And then it's like, oh, Nick, what did you come across? I got a rock.
Your rock?
It's the Charlie Brown moment. It's the Charlie Brown Halloween moment. I got a rock.
Your rock?
Like literally,
how'd you get the country your rock?
Half price books has had nothing for months.
Man, I don't know. I don't know what it is about mine. Maybe it's just because I guess there's a lot of people who have Goosebumps in my state. I don't know. I can't explain it.
Like, I don't want this crap.
I'll certainly come back to that.
Apparently, there's some Goosebumps hunters in Indiana. I thought I was alone in Indiana as a Goosebumps collector. Apparently not so much, because the books are damn near impossible to find.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm the Goosebumps Wisconsin fan or something like that.
Honestly, I get most excited when I find a Series 2000 or a Black Spine Choose Your Own Adventure
or TV Presents.
Or a TV Presents. That is like even when I find the original 62, like, it's exciting, it's great, but when you find a Series 2000 book in the wild, it's like another level of great. Or you find if you find a Black Spine, like book 39 or book 35 to 42, it's like, what the fucking, like, you know what I mean? Like, holy slappy, what's going on here? Like, who the hell donated these? Who just didn't want them straight up? Like, and then you find them, like, because that last haul I found, there was like Elevated or Nowhere, and it came from the internet, and I was like, what the hell? Like, why just these two random books amongst the small fry? I don't know. It's weird.
I envy your findings, Bjorn. Seriously, this guy will literally go 1 week and then he'll just come across some sale or some store that just happens to have a ton of super rare books for like
Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes. 50 cents? Okay.
I have now 7 copies.
Envy you,
Yeah.
envy you so
And I'll
much.
just, you know what? I'll just buy. You know what? Like, I'm starting to debate if that's just my side gig now, just buying and selling Goosebump books. Like, that is my side gig. You know what I mean? Like, because I kept saying to myself, like, I need more money to buy Goosebumps. Well, what if I just buy Goosebumps to sell Goosebumps to buy more Goosebumps? You know, like, just sell the doubles, sell, you know, all of the books and the merch, anything, and then I can use that money to buy new things I don't have.
I mean,
and I've been doing that lately.
Sounds like a lucrative business, especially for how much you have. So
we should just open
Especially
up a
what
Goosebumps
prices are going for right
shop.
now too with Goosebumps stuff. It's like, man, I could remember like a couple years ago, this was like half the price that people are paying for now. It's like, yeesh.
One more thing I
those
want
black
to.
lights are so rare. Like, I've never seen the two together. Oh my god!
One more thing I want to bring up about first Goosebumps experiences, and I'll get more into this when we talk about how we discovered the show. But there was actually one book I did see before the ones I mentioned that I saw in the school library. And it was actually Beware the Purple Peanut Butter. I saw this in the library, and then this was long before, maybe not that long, I'd say maybe like 3 years before I really got into Goosebumps. And scary stuff for me was scary. Like, I didn't really like much scary stuff, except for maybe, like, I think Scooby-Doo was probably my limit on scary stuff. And I saw this one in particular at the library, and for whatever reason, it just creeped me out. Like, I don't know, something about being in a big sandwich.
It looks like the Elvis sandwich, honestly. Like,
We talked
We
quite a bit about the
talked about
Elvis sandwich before recording,
Podcast,
so
yeah.
for those of you who don't get the joke,
famous. If to those of you who don't know, the Elvis sandwich is, like, real quick. You can YouTube how to make it. It's just like a massive sandwich. It's
it's a
toasted
heart
on either
attack
side.
on
with,
a
like, butter.
bun.
It's a heart attack on a bun. It's like half a jar of peanut butter, half a jar of, like, blueberry, a whole packet of bacon, and, like, banana. Like, it's honestly,
You can
I'll eat
feel
you can have like
on-
3 bites.
you can
of it.
feel
Standard
your
bread, I have
arteries
no idea.
clogging while eating it.
Yeah, like, my arteries are, like, dead if I eat that. And I'm like, I feel like I want to do it one day just to see, like, what the king was eating, literally.
Don't
But at
do
the same
it.
time, I'm like, I don't know. Like, he'd be like, "Oh, it's a good sandwich. It's a very good sandwich. Try. I highly recommend for your arteries. You need to go to the bathroom really bad.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I kind of feel like if he was still here, you know, the impersonation would be just a collar flip up, get that extra chin down here, just dead. After one bite of that sandwich, just dead.
Love you, Elvis. But goddamn, I would not have eaten that sandwich.
Oh, God, me neither. Seriously.
Oh,
Don't eat the Elvis sandwich. That's the moral of today's podcast.
no.
Okay.
It's
That's
too
your
much.
that's your PSA for today's podcast.
Yeah.
Podcast service announcement. That's your
Yeah.
PSA.
Exactly.
Now, I think the next part to get into naturally was what was the first book that we fully read? And I guess I'll start on this one because even though I did, technically read parts of like these three, I guess technically if you want to talk about the first like book I read to an end, it was this one. But I don't count this because you can reach the ending technically within like 2 or 3 pages. So I don't count that.
Exactly.
But if you want to talk about the first book that I ever read fully from start to finish, it was actually not only Cuckoo Clock of Doom, but this particular library version of Cuckoo Clock of Doom. As you can see, I don't know if you can see with my awesome green light, but this version, as I said, was made for schools, and it's not fancy at all. It's basically, they just photocopied the cover onto a hardcover. Same thing with the back, except it's seriously cropped. And the spine looks like that. It's literally just standard text.
It could be rare now. It could be a rare book. You never know. Someone might.
Absolutely.
You could put it up and be like, "Yeah, Cuckoo Clock hardcover," and some Goosebump collector's like, "I'll give you $2,000."
Oh, definitely. I mean, these books are
A shout out.
definitely hard to come by because they were only made for schools, and most likely schools are, when they're done with them, are gonna probably throw them out.
Yeah, exactly.
I was lucky enough.
That's actually pretty cool.
I was lucky enough to get myself one of these copies, and I'm so glad because it's super sentimental to me. But this version of Cuckoo Clock of Doom was the first Goosebumps book I ever read through from start to finish. And I just remember, like, really being interested in the plot, because even though it didn't have any monsters, it was just like, you're following this kid. He's got a super bratty sister. And I
don't
remember...
say, you say it doesn't have a monster, but that sister...
Yeah,
She
That
is the
sister was a
monster.
monster.
monster in the philosophical sense.
Terror. Bloody terror.
And just and it's actually funny too, because I think this was before, no, this was after. I have a little sister who is you know, like, everybody knows having a little sister is sometimes, or a little sibling at all, is sometimes just a pain in the ass. And I remember reading this book and seeing the little sister Tara in this book and being like, good thing I don't gotta go through that. And then, you know, give or take 2 or 3 years.
Do you think that's why they named her Terror? Because she is a terror, right?
Terror? I think
Like,
that is
she's
definitely
terror.
why they named her that.
And like,
That, you know, that could be a happy accident, but that actually would be really cool if it was factual.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
If the day ever comes that we get R.L. Stein on here, that would
That's
be
a
one of my
question I want
questions.
to know.
We will
That's a
find
question
out.
right there.
But I just remember, like, really being interested about the journey in this book and, like, how it kept going back in time until he was a baby. And then, like, you know, he's got to go back to the clock and turn the head around. But I don't know. I don't know what it was about this one in particular. I think it was probably the cover art. It was probably the cover art. That bird just looked really, really evil. And I wanted to know what its deal was.
Yeah.
So, this was my first Goosebumps.
What is your malfunction?
I loved Cuckoo Clock of Doom, yeah,
Damn,
but
bud.
mine's boring because I've already said it, but the first book I read all the way through, obviously, was this, Night of the Living Dummy, and then I discovered, you know, years later when I started reading more, that the sequel is actually 1,000 times better. We all love Night of the Living Dummy too. Just a little fun fact about this Goosebumps crew, we all agreed the sequel is better.
Yeah.
But I mean, that cover art that Tim did is just so iconic, man. It's unlike anytime they do like a line of Goosebumps clothing at any store, what do they always put on the t-shirts? Always this.
I will
the
say
first book
they
I
did
read,
come out with, I think it was Target. Actually, I think you have it, Isaiah. It was Night of the Living Dummy 2, though. It's on there.
Yep, I got one.
yes,
And
That was
I
like
got
the
a Night of
first
the
time
Living
I ever
free
saw
shirt.
2 put on something over 1, which was really surprising.
Yeah.
2 is better.
I mean, I
it's
definitely think
it's
that
like
more apparel should have lesser used Goosebumps art. I think there should be a shirt for every
Yeah.
Goosebumps artwork.
yeah. Well,
No, I agree.
that's what I mean.
Because even
like-
if the book was trash, the art's always great, and we've talked about that several times.
Yeah, like the art for this is obviously more iconic. Even though I love the second book's art, I think it's more eerie. Well, I wouldn't say eerie. This one's probably actually wins on eeriness, but the second book I think is just there's so much more going on with the colors. Like I love the pinks and the greens, and you know I love it, and I love that you get to see Slappy's full body, like lanky body, looks real creepy. But yeah, no, I you know this was the first book I read all the way through. And I remember reading it for the first time being like, but I thought, wait, why is Slappy not doing the evil things? Why is it this other dummy? Like, I remember being like, well, this is weird. Like, you know, and like, but yeah, no, yeah, my first Goosebumps book I read all the way through was Night of the Living Dummy, the first one. But, you know, it's just crazy to me that like after all these years, you know, it's still the one I stare at, even though like the second one I prefer. I will still pull this one out and just stare at it. I don't know what it is. It's just, you know, it's the nostalgia.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's the nostalgia of it.
I'm going to call it a statue, because I got one of the Haunted Mask from R.J. Murtaugh. Didn't you get one from him too, but there was Night of the Living Dummy 2?
I did. I got Night of the Living Dummy
Okay.
1 and 2. He did both.
Okay. I
And he
remember 2, I think, but I didn't know you got 1.
Yeah, he did one for 1 as well. And he did the horror at Camp Jelly Jam for me, which is my favorite Goosebumps book. Love that book. Love the cover. Love the inside. That's the package deal one for me. But yeah, no. first Goosebump book ever read all the way through was obviously had to be the one that I stared at for a very long time, because I was like, well, I need to know what happens in this book. And when I was old enough to actually read it, that's when I would say I probably read it when I was about 6. So probably like 2001, I would say, was when I actually read the book.
I was about to
But I
say
remember my mom reading it to me.
I was going to say, did you actually read it when you were 4 years old? I was like, that's
My
impressive.
mom read it. She kind of read it, and I remember just laying there and listening, but I wasn't really listening. Like, I was kind of like, just every time I'd hear like the dummy would punch Lindy, I'd be like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't really paying full attention to it, but the way I look at it is like Night of the Living Dummy 2 is like the Terminator 2 of the Dummy franchise. It's the Aliens of the Dummy franchise for the story. But I think the first one definitely wins, I guess, for the cover. You can't really beat it. Like, it's just perfect. Like, it is perfect. Everything about it. You can't change a simple thing about it. Like,
it's definitely one of my favorites, like, without a doubt.
100%.
Yeah, and that's why I was so stoked when we did talk with Tots, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do an actual ventriloquist dummy based on the cover from Night of the Living Dummy 1." I was like,
yeah.
It's like, oh my
god!
Finally.
Do you know what they should do for the box? If it comes in a big box, they should just put the book cover on the box, like on the actual thing. And then when you open it, the dummy is just—it's literally. He's doing the face as you like open it.
Well, like, have it like the box, but like
I was gonna say, or the suitcase thing that he comes in.
You would have it like how it is in the book with him like peering through the window, but it looks like the book, but it's the actual dummy. You know.
I will die when that.
We'll definitely see what well, I should say we'll see what Sam comes up with. Sam's the guy who we had on the podcast who said he does all the box designs. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what they do with it. I'm hoping they do something really cool with it like that, because I may not even take it out of the box at that point. Like, how amazing! Just I want to display the box if it's going to look like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you get like a big glass cabinet and you put like Slappy sitting in the chair with the box behind it or something. Like, I don't know, but I would probably, me as a collector, I'd probably just buy 2 of them if I can afford 2 of them.
Yeah, that's going to be my thing. Let's see how much it costs first.
That would be cool though if it did show up in a suitcase, like just an old suitcase, and you open it up and it has like the card in his pocket. That would be pretty neat.
Oh. That's how you would sell it. Like, people would buy it just so like when it arrives at the front door, they're like, oh my God. You gotta like unlock the thing. And then on the inside, it's got
who would send you a doll?
They go like, imagine if they made it look like the TV series though, with like the red, like Slappy's name.
Yeah.
Like the with the weird little.
Yeah, I actually had a decal made. Same maker who made those decals I sent to you guys for our Goosebumps Crew logo made that Slappy one that's in the box.
Well, that's
cool. What's behind mine. Like, it's a little blocked, but I mean, like, it's behind my Slappy that's in my case. I'll have to send you a picture later.
That's really
you'll
cool.
have to send a picture.
Nick, what was your first book that you read? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's kind of like Bjorn. I was found Haunted Mask, picked it up, finished it in a day. Reread it 1,000 times or more since then. Obviously, in the last 30 plus years. So, I mean, it's but I did go back and read. Once I read that one, I was like, oh, this is really good. Let me go check this out. So, of course, I read Welcome to Dead House and Stay Out of the Basement. I wasn't a big fan of Monster Blood, I don't think, if I remember right. It was okay. And Say Cheese and Die wasn't bad. I actually enjoyed Say Cheese and Die, but I did notice, like, as it kind of went on, like, there were obviously not every book was fantastic, but I always kept going back to Haunted Masks to kind of get my my reading juices flowing. So I'm like, oh, that was garbage. I got to go back to read this one again.
Yeah, you hit. I
basically peaked on the first book, so it's like, shit.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, there's a few that kind of rival it, if I want to, I guess, say that. I mean, I really enjoyed Welcome to Dead House, and maybe it's because it was just that early book, and Stein wasn't really sure what he was going for, because it was, like we've talked about, it's really dark. And I was just one of those, again, Halloween kids, love the dark stuff. I played Magic the Gathering and did all that stuff, back then. So that really set the tone for the books I enjoy, even outside of Goosebumps, So.
Well, it's funny for me because,
like I
said, my first ones were Bad Hair Day and Beast from the East and Cuckoo Clock of Doom.
I said I'm so sorry.
It was like
I
the
like Beast
weirdest
from the
mix.
East. I like Beast from the East. Beast from the East to me is
It's
just
okay.
a fun, quick roller coaster. That's how I always looked at that book. I love the cover art too. Tim is, oh my God, the colors like on the weird plants and stuff.
Yeah, see, that's
Insanity.
what I said. Like Tim's artwork, man, will sell me any book. I swear, even if
Yeah.
the book's
Oh.
trash. Like,
It's
I
beautiful.
love the Beast from the East artwork.
Yeah,
It's a roller coaster. Like
It's crazy.
if you want
like,
a quick Goosebump book to just read and just have a fun time, like just quick and easy fun, that's that book for me. It's like if I just want like it's like literally from start to finish, that book is a roller coaster, and you're going like this because like it's just like because it's like a chase, you know, and it's just like boom, 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 and then you finish it, and you're like, oh, it's over. You know what I mean? Like that's the Beast from the East for me. Like it's not a bad book. It's not a masterpiece of a Goosebump book. It's in the middle range of the story, and it's fun. If you're like want to introduce someone to Goosebumps, and it's like not really, you know, not at a high level of reading, or you know, that's a book to be like, here, just read this one. Like, you know, if you want it quick and you want to just read it and get out, you know what I mean? That's
from
that book.
the East. Who are we talking, like Asia or like Philadelphia? Like, what are we talking about here?
What are we talking about here?
John trying for you. Little
Someone
John Tron.
I love-
trying to get on the podcast.
I was gonna say, you know, now I'm really disappointed. You're gonna bring up JonTron, but when you said Cuckoo Clock of Doom, you didn't go Cuckoo Clock of Doom. I'm really
Clock of
disappointed
Doom.
in you now that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah. Why am I afraid of bees? Oh, that's obvious, isn't it?
Oh
Oh
man,
God,
John Tron.
really wish we could.
He needs
get
to make
him on.
another Goosebumps Part 3. Where's Goosebumps Part 3, John Tron?
I really hope that
I know, man.
this episode becomes poorly aged and we do have JonTron at some point.
Oh my
Be like,
God.
oh, wasn't that a great time when we thought we wouldn't get him
I
on?
would like to have JonTron on here. I think it'd be fun.
That'd be awesome. That'd be a
Just
great
one
time.
more candy corn. This masterpiece will be epic. Oh
To
man,
me, that
he's
video
great.
is
Love him.
iconic. That also kind of helped in my growth as a Goosebumps fan, even though that was much later. But that video was substantial, I would say.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Absolutely. Anyway, we're going to continue with our talk about our Goosebumps experiences. But of course, if you guys are not following the podcast, please make sure that you follow the Goosebumps Crew on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, wherever you can find podcasts. And like I said, we're going to have some amazing guests coming on the podcast. We've had some amazing guests in the past, so make sure you follow us. You can also find us on artemedia.org. You can also follow the Goosebumps channel and Goosebumps Aussie Fan and Sean on our social medias and our YouTubes if you want to just see what we do outside of the Goosebumps Crew. And you can also pledge to our brand new Patreon. We have a link to our Patreon in the description below. If you guys want to support us, want to help us grow, it can be as little as $1 a month. And you guys will get some pretty cool perks if you pledge to the Patreon. So make sure you go and check it out. Link is in the description below. We also have our Discord server up. If you guys want to join that, we kind of have discussions over there. We also have a book club. We have episode watches, all sorts of stuff. Lots of people who love Goosebumps getting together and talking about it alongside us. So if you guys want to join that server, that link is also in the description. Now, before we get back to more Goosebumps discussion, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Trophy Smack. Everybody wants to feel like a winner, and what better way to feel like one than with a trophy of your accomplishment? As seen on ABC's Shark Tank, Trophy Smack is the ultimate destination for custom fantasy sports awards. Trophy Smack has what you need to celebrate your wins and losses with their large array of customizable championship trophies, belts, rings, and plaques. Their custom-made awards make for the perfect addition to almost any occasion, anything from fantasy football, corporate awards, gaming, wrestling, esports, and real sports. But even if you're not into sports, Trophy Smack products are customizable for anything, even for those who want a nice shiny trophy for being the best Goosebumps fan ever. Trophy Smack uses top-of-the-line materials to make superior-made awards that will last for years and years, and made to suit any price point. And if that weren't enough, not only does Trophy Smack have quality-made products for affordable prices, but they also include free shipping, free engraving, and 100% guaranteed satisfaction. If you want to snag yourself some quality-made awards for your fantasy sports event, visit Trophy Smack's website by clicking the link in the description and check out their large array of trophies, belts, rings, and more, and feel like a champ in no time. And of course, special thanks to Trophy Smack for sponsoring this episode. And now, back to more Goosebumps. Hey, while we were gone, Micah joined. What? Alright, so Micah, since you're joining halfway through, we're gonna ask you really quick. What was your first Goosebumps experience? How'd you discover it? And what was the first book you read?
So I discovered Goosebumps for the first time going to my public library in like the first grade. We would always go there like every week for a field trip to check out books. And there was like these like rotating circular shelves that they had like near the kids' book section. And in those shelves, they had like all the Animorphs books. And in the middle, they had like every Goosebumps book from a mix of like original series and GYG, from what I remember. And I just like saw some of like the spines and the titles, and I just got curious and would like pull some of them out and would get traumatized by the covers. And then immediately put them back onto the shelf. Such as this creepy fucker right here.
Aha! Yay!
Caught in my, along with the old lady from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, caught in my dreams as a kid.
No,
We're brothers.
We were talking about that before break, because that was Bjorn's first book that he saw and he read.
Yeah, another book that I saw that I started reading but I never finished was How to Kill a Monster. That was the first one I ever like checked out from the library, but I never actually read it all the way through because I got too scared. But then the first book that I read all the way through is The Ghost Next Door, which is still one of my all-time favorite books. I just reread it like last month, and I still love it. So
yeah,
it's always one of my favorite book, one of my favorite episodes. I love it.
That's a good one. Speaking of libraries, I know I talked about the school library, but I gotta say that before I technically started collecting, I actually went and got books from the public library. So this is not the school one, but the public library. And they had a ton of Goosebumps books. And that's where I went to get Goosebumps books before I started collecting them, was I would check them out at the library, and I'd get like stacks. I remember I got like, some of the ones I remember very much were My Hairiest Adventure, Vampire Breath, Stay Out of the Basement, Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, like just a bunch, and they were like beat up. Some of them were like torn. It was like, I don't know why it's so nostalgic to me. And actually, I went back recently, and mind you, this was like 15 years later, just about, and they still have a ton of Goosebumps books. Many of them have been replaced with newer, like, they're still OG. They have newer ones, but they have a lot of OG. And they're kind of newer copies they replaced with about 5 years ago. But I found out they have a Monster Blood 4 there. They have Monster Blood
Take
4.
Just take it.
I can't take it.
Take it, borrow it, and don't return it, and then just pay the fine. What is it, $8-10? Just be like, here you go.
I mean,
that's what
I keep accumulating over the amount of years I have it.
Don't do this. But when I was a kid, they had. I did this when I was a really young kid. Okay. To you young ones listening, don't listen for the next like minute. But they had Ghost in the Mirror at my school library, and I borrowed it. I never returned it. I was just waiting for that little slip of paper in the mail to be like, you owe this much money, and I just paid it. I was like, there you go. Don't do that. It's naughty. It's very naughty. But I was like 8 or 9. I was young. I'm gonna call the police. So a kid. I grew up. I learned my lessons. I learned lessons, but it was the Ghost in the Mirror, like one of the hardest ones.
Telling your mom.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's more threatening.
Telling your mom.
She watches this.
Like, I'm not calling the police. I'm calling your mom.
Mom.
I can hear the phone ringing like in the background now. Like,
comes in there with
the belt,
like a giant ladle spoon.
Where's that book? We gotta take it back now.
It's 20 years past due date.
It was probably like 2000. It was like 2004, so it is probably. I think it was like 20 years exactly.
So
I had to have it.
going into so we talked a lot about the books, but one thing I definitely want to bring up is, and our query at least, how
Like his finger.
Yeah, I was on it. I didn't finish. That was some more more first Goosebumps experiences. I distinctly remember the first
how many
5
first
original
experiences you have?
books. Well, these, for like the first books I actually
This is
bought.
my 6th first experience.
Because like the other great, but these are the first ones that I bought, and I distinctly remember going to like a secondhand store we had locally that's gone out of business now, sadly, but as most of them do. But they're like a little locally owned store, and they had like these 2 big bags of Goosebumps books. I only was able to buy one of them, but most of them were GYGs. But I was a little kid, so I didn't know at the time. But and then these are the first 5 original 62s I ever got. Let's Get Invisible. This is not the original copy. This is the one I got from Nick, but it is the one of the first. I do have that original copy still. The rest of these are all those original copies that I got. Ghost Next Door was one of them. You Can't Scare Me, another cover that absolutely traumatized me. Deep Trouble, and Go Eat Worms.
Deep shit.
So yeah, those are the first 5 that I got.
Deep shit.
That's the adult version of Goosebumps. Instead of Deep Trouble, it's in Deep Shit.
Yeah. I am in deep shit
Story
still.
of my life.
Taking that book. Well, I'm in deep shit now because Nick's going to call my mom.
No, but as I was saying, I
Yeah, I
definitely
am.
want to bring up how we got into the Goosebumps TV show, because that was another aspect of my growth in the Goosebumps, at least. I know it definitely was for a lot of other people. But in terms of my experience, I know I said that my first experience was discovering these 3 books. That's not it. My very first experience with Goosebumps as a whole was, and I've said this before, the Cartoon Network...
How many firsts do you got?
Don't you use my jokes against me. That's my job. No, the first time I ever saw the Goosebumps TV show was during the first Cartoon Network Halloween marathon back in 2007. And as I said before, I've told the story before, but I remember seeing those promos and they were horrifying to me. Because the way they edited them, the way they recut the episodes, and it's funny because the show is really not that scary. But the promos made it seem like it was freaking terrifying. They made it seem like it was some kind of 70s, 80s horror film. But I remember that just horrified me. And seeing this book in the library, and seeing this tape in the library, Stay Out of the Basement in particular, with the green hand, was so frightening to me. I was like, I don't ever want to see anything Goosebumps related. And then
No.
3 years later, then I got into the book series, and I was like, well, crap. Sorry, Pat.
Now look at you.
Never going back.
Now
Never
look at
going
ya.
back. Once you get Goosebumps, you never go back.
You're a Goosebumps whore.
Those Cartoon Network commercials, they were like Grindhouse almost.
Exactly. They were like 70s, 80s Grindhouse movies. That was definitely what they went for.
Yeah.
Not for the 2009 one, though. They had 3 years. The last year, they didn't do anything for that. And that was disappointing. But those are my vivid
maybe
memories.
Cartoon Network. Someone will watch this from Cartoon Network and be like, oh, well, look, they want the Goosebump thing back. We'll go and do that Goosebump thing again.
Yeah, I
40
wish.
episodes of
I haven't seen Goosebumps on TV since like almost 10 years
the
ago.
movie. Yeah, Disney Channel was playing the episodes I remember here in Australia during the movie. I remember I literally turned on TV, went straight to Disney, and Night in Terror Tower was just on. It was just on. I was like, what the hell? What
Nice.
the... What?
You
And I
know,
actually started
that brings up
watching
a
it.
good point. I wonder why that Disney Plus hasn't put the Goosebumps show from the 90s on
weird.
Disney Plus.
Especially if
Because I
Oh, they're
don't
embarrassed.
2023.
Because I wouldn't think it would be a rights issue because Netflix had it. You know what I mean? They still have some, but they don't have all the episodes anymore.
I don't know.
So clearly they have the rights to stream if they wanted it, I guess, but it's just not on there.
Weird.
Again, it's because they know that everyone will watch that instead of the 2023 show.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I would.
I definitely
Yeah.
would.
I'd rather watch that too.
I own a bootleg Blu-ray of the whole show.
I'd be like, there is no 2023 series.
That's how I
It
feel.
might be a 2024 or 2025. When's that season 2 coming out, do you think? Do you think this year or next year?
I think this
No,
year.
I think
probably.
next year.
Next year.
'Cause they still gotta
there
film it.
might be a
I'd be
2025
really
show.
surprised if it was this year, just because I don't even think they've started filming yet. They just announced the cast maybe like a week or two ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, David
think so.
Schwimmer.
So who knows?
I
David
mean,
Schwimmer.
now don't get me wrong, they could very well just throw this together so fast and just throw it out there for this October. Because I want to say maybe that's also what happened with that other show that must not be named season. But who knows? I mean, I would hope that at least they would take their time and at least make it good.
Mhm.
May not have to be great, but at least make it good.
Now,
Make it better than one. That's all we ask.
in terms of the 90s
Yeah.
series, though, Nick, I'm pretty sure that did you watch that when it was airing, though? I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I
my
think
my
you're-
whole first experience with the show was the original airing. They built it up all the way up to the end of October. I remember it was a special thing I got to stay up late for because it was premiering at I think 8 o'clock at night or something. So it was a primetime event, 1 hour special of the Haunted Mask, and it was amazing and increased my love even more for the Goosebumps franchise. So I was like, wow, I can't believe they made this book that I was reading, and it looks so good. And I wanted the mask so bad. I'm sitting there the whole time thinking, I was like, Carly Beth doesn't deserve you. You just need to leave that bitch and come to me. I need you.
Victim.
I need you. And
What about you, Bjorn?
I loved it. I loved it from start to finish. Even when it got to the later episodes, because we talked about it before, when you're a kid, everything was much better when you're a kid. But when you go back and watch some of these things as an adult, you kind of see, Oz behind the curtain, if you will, well, this wasn't that great. It's probably could have been better if they did this. Now I definitely see how they did that. Look at that bad CGI. Look at so it's like,
Yeah.
eh.
Look at that kid in an obvious fat suit.
Yes.
Look at that
Oh,
kid in
man,
an
like-
obvious CG fat suit.
with the cotton balls in his cheeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you guys have caramel slices over in America? Caramel slice?
No.
Okay, I was always wondering what that girl was eating in the Haunted Mask. There's that girl that has the big frizzy blue hair. She's almost just like a clown at the scene with lunch when she eats the worm, and she pulls this thing out of her bag, and it looks so
Yeah.
good. Whatever it is, she kind of goes.
It's like orange bread with
Yeah, she's
a
like,
chocolate bottom or something. I'm like, I always wondered that too.
it's so
I was
weird.
like, what
it's
the hell is she eating? Because I want it.
I
I
It was
guess
like caramel
it's like-
slice.
My guess it was just like a sandwich that someone dyed orange for the bread and charred the other bread.
yeah, they charred the meat.
It looked seriously like that was the most Halloween looking sandwich I've ever seen in my life.
It looks
Like,
better
I
than
could
the
have sworn
Halloween
that
burger at Burger King.
that bottom half was
I made a
chocolate, and I don't know what that top half was, but God, it looked good.
Yeah.
I just
We should have asked
love that
Alan.
actress.
We should have asked
just
Alan to
looking
set
at
when
that-
he was on here.
looking at that sandwich
She's like,
Yeah, even she was surprised. She's like, "What the fuck is?"
yeah,
But
it
she
was a
would dive
natural
into it, though.
reaction.
I mean, I guess that was
It's
at
like
the
kids-
time when parents were just putting their kids' lunches and the kids didn't know what their parents pack. Just pull that out, like, what the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah, no, that was me. I
that
remember
looks
that.
good. I'll take a bite. That looks good. I might eat it.
And there's a worm in it.
Yeah, 100%.
What about you,
Yeah,
Bjorn?
you
Did
know,
discover
Mom didn't put the worm in the sandwich.
Did-
It ended up being Steve.
What about you,
Or
Bjorn?
No,
Did you
Chuck
discover
threw
the
it in
show
there. I think
through,
Steve was a distraction.
Did you discover the show through maybe like a DVD of some kind?
Wow.
Funny you should ask.
I went to a place called, I can tell you the story exactly how it happened. My introduction to the series was, of course, this boy right here.
Transformer.
I'm trying to do the whole
I legitimately thought that you accidentally like put it the wrong way, and then you're like,
well, what's crazy is so many people are introduced to the Haunted Mask, Night in Terror Tower is the other one a lot of people say they're introduced by. But I funny enough, so like I knew my cousin had some of the videos, but he genuinely wouldn't let me watch them at the time. I went to a place called, so like, you know, when you would go to like a club, so to speak, with your parents, and you would have like dinner, and then they would drop you off in like the kids area, and then they would go like, you know, play on the pokey machine.
I thought about a different kind of club.
Dude, yeah, I was gonna say, when you said club,
like
I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, I remember getting taken to no
like
rain
all the time as a kid. Didn't you do
Like,
that?
taking you to that kind of a club.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember
like,
just.
the ones that have like food and then there's like to be like a kids area, but then there'd be like the adults go and like gamble on the pokey machine. So like at a casino, and they would drop the kids at like the kids area that had like video games and yeah, like one of those. Like,
man, Australia had some cool shit because we didn't have that.
Wait,
they thought that was a combination
kids
of
gamble.
Okay, so best way to describe it is like we called them like a surf club almost, but they would have like breakfast, lunch, and like a dinner.
Yeah.
So you would have like you'd have like an area where there might be like a buffet dinner or breakfast, and you would all have dinner together. But then there'd be an area for the adults, which was like where they would go and gamble on pokies and stuff. And then you would have like a little kids zone area where you would drop your kids stuff to like go in there while you go and, you know, so you'd be in the care of some random person at the club. But they would usually have like claw machines in there. They would have like arcade games. They would have like PlayStation. They'd have Nintendos, and they would normally have like a little theater room area, which would have like, you know, movies. So we're going back to when it was literally VHS, and it was 2000, because I remember we took a photo with the family, and like I said, back then they used to stamp the date on the back of the photos, so it had 2000 on it. And I remember we went into there, and I was well and truly into Goosebumps at this point, collecting it, had books and everything. I got dropped off into the kids area with my brother. What's on the TV? This video. And literally, they had the video like there next to the TV, and then they had like the big TV screen, and they were playing Night of the Living Dummy. And kids were literally screaming and crying and going off, and I'm just sitting there like, I'm watching it now. Like, I'm actually watching. And it's funny because when it finished, they were like, all right, we're going to put something else on. And I was like, no, play it again. So
you played that.
I yelled it
10,000 more times.
I did. And they played it again. And the kids were like, I don't want to watch it again. I'm scared. And I'm like, it's so good, wasn't it? And I would like, play it again. And as you guys know, the Australian copy had Night of the Living Dummy 2 and 3. So, but the thing is, when I came in to watch it, it was already like halfway through, I think, the third one. So I was like, no, play it again. And then they went back to the beginning. And then I was like, wait, this is all new. This is different. What's this? And it was like Night of the Living Dummy 2 and Night of the Living Dummy 3. So that was my introduction was, you know, as, you know, ironic as it is, was Night of the Living Dummy, which is why I now have 31 copies. 31 copies of this on VHS. On VHS. We have 31 copies now. So I'm going to become Titanic guy on Instagram. So to those of you who don't know who that is, he has like, I think nearly 3,000 copies of Titanic on VHS. That's going to be me with this. I'm going to keep buying them. And then maybe one day people will just start sending them to me as well. So that number will just keep growing. And yeah.
I'm awfully confident people just send them to you randomly, buddy.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, he gets sent boxes of them from people, like boxes. One guy sent him like an entire box with sealed copies, soundtracks, and I'm like, so if I can just become big enough that like people know I'm up to these, they might just start sending them. I don't even care if they're moldy copies. Just send them. Send them. I need to get that. I just want to get to 50.
If they're cake,
you have no more room.
Yeah, like
you have no more room, so your missus is going to be really pissed when she's looking like, where'd my plants go? Why are they replaced by VHS of this?
Why are they replaced by Night of the Living Dummy on VHS?
We got another 20 copies of Night of the Living Dummy on VHS. Oh, I just love that parachute pet seal. I'm gonna make a video and say this video is inspired by Titanic fan 97. Like I will make a video. I will do that because I am
give him a
obsessed
shout out
with this. And a shout out. But hey, he'll know how big and much people love him when they start doing inspired videos. So I'm just sharing the love of his Titanic obsession.
And he might get some followers out of it, like them. Maybe people hadn't heard of him before.
Maybe.
Be like, oh, I gotta go check this guy
Exactly.
out. How does he have 3,000 copies of this movie?
I gotta get like a big cardboard cutout of like Hayden Christensen, or like slap and just be like, oh, we're gonna add it to the book of Hayden. I love. Oh, look at Hayden Christensen.
That's so weird. I'm sorry, that's so weird. And what about you,
I could
Mike?
actually do that though.
You're, I believe you and I are on the same age, so you obviously didn't catch it in the '90s. How did you find out about the show?
Well, I was a fan of the books for a while. Like ever since I was a kid, I was morbidly curious. I wouldn't say I was a diehard fan because I hadn't started reading them yet, but I had started kind of getting into collecting the books and things like that. And I remember I was just browsing through Netflix one day and I found Goosebumps, the show. I didn't watch it because I was too much of a coward, but
So you discovered it on Netflix. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was on like the Netflix Kids section when they used to have that. And I was like scrolling through and just looking at all the episode listings and just wondering what they would be like. I also remember the old Goosebumps website that Scholastic used to have had like this little section for this, all the episodes and like little clips from each episode.
I remember that too.
And that's kind of what I started on, was just looking at those clips and watching a couple of them. But a couple other things. I remember seeing this DVD in a $5 movie bin at Walmart one time. And I just like stared at this for hours, like just looking at it while I was waiting for my mom to finish checking out. So hours is an exaggeration, but
I was about to say, that's a long time.
Yeah, probably the most nostalgic DVD for me. But it's a really funny story about how I actually started watching the show itself. My dad is terrified of ventriloquist dummies. Magic, of course, traumatizes him. So, and I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I never was as a kid, and I still am not that big of a fan of it. But my dad was wanting me to watch A New Hope, and I didn't want to. So I was like, I'll give you an ultimatum, Dad. If I watch A New Hope, you gotta watch Night of the Living Dummy too.
That's funny.
Oh man!
And then
good bargain.
Watched it that night. They reported it to me the next morning, so I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll check this out. So yeah, Dummy 2 is probably my most nostalgic episode because it's like the first one I ever watched.
Should have made him watch the third one, because then you could have said, but look, there's Hayden Christensen. There's Hayden.
Yeah, your dad would have been like, oh my God, look.
He didn't watch the prequels. We watched A New Hope, so I didn't even know who Hayden Christensen was as a kid.
Oh man, you know what? I actually could get a cardboard cutout of Hayden Christensen from Star Wars, like an original one, and then I could just dress him up like Zane.
Yeah, just put like a shirt on him or something like that.
Yeah, put a camera around his neck.
No. So obviously we talked about like what books that we've gotten into and we discovered and how we got into the show. But I think the best place to kind of close things off is to talk about how we started collecting Goosebumps. And I remember when I first went to Half Price Books, because, as I said, I was going to the library and I was checking out all these books. And I think my parents were like, oh, we're going back like every week. It's like, why don't we actually buy you some? So we went to Half Price Books for the first time ever. Had no idea what the store was at the time, my little 9-year-old self. And we went to the back where all the kids' books were, and I'm telling you, 2 shelves of Goosebumps books. Now, I wish I was back at that time, because I probably would have cleaned out that whole thing. But I couldn't. So I got 5 books, and I don't remember exactly what they were. But I remember I got Welcome to Dead House and You Can't Scare Me, because I remember I saw a photo of You Can't Scare Me, and I really wanted that one, so I was glad to get it. But I also got this. I got a Monster Edition 2 as one of the first books I ever owned in my collection. That's how lucky I was. And that luck continues to this day. So I just wanted to get more and more books, because I was like, hey, I really like these books, and I really like these covers. And I think I also remember like seeing on old YouTube how people used to like put their Goosebumps collections on YouTube. They'd be like, here's my Goosebumps collection. I have this book and this book and this book. And I was like, I want to do that. I did.
Oh man, like
he's a big kid now.
God, making
what
the
about
best
you,
YouTube
Bjorn?
videos.
How did that monster of a collection start?
Well, short and sweet. Immediately, like when I started getting the books, it was like the merch came pretty much right away because my cousin, I showed it earlier, he gave me his card game, and I'm going to keep showing this because his name is written on the inside. There you go, Nicholas, there's your card game. So yeah, he like gave me this because he had two of them, which was really weird. I think the other one he had was a sealed one, so he gave me his like open one. So he gave me that, and then I remember like, because we were in New Zealand, so we went back home to Australia, and then like I am talking the next day after my dad finishes work, he stops off at like a thrift store, which we call them op shops here, and he comes home with a binder, and it was the Ghost Beach one. So like the Night of the Living Dummy one, it's just basically that, but it's Ghost Beach. And he also had what was it? It was that and oh god, I can't remember. Pencil case, a little mini pencil case that had like all the characters on it. It was a purple one. I think you might know what it is. It's purple. It's got like Slappy, the horror, Curly, and I think Cuddles on it, or the Mummy. So he brought those home, and they were from he just went in. I'm like, this was at a time when no one wanted Goosebumps stuff. So, but when I went to these thrift stores, I wasn't looking for stationary stuff. I would go straight to the toys or the games. So now I'm like, God damn, if I went to these thrift stores back then and looked at everything, I would have found a lot more because, I just wasn't looking in those sections because as a kid, you don't think to do that.
Yeah.
But my dad was. He was like looking in every section. So that's how we got like that Cuckoo Clock a Doom clock for like $2, which now people want pay $1,000 for it. But I'm like, that's never for sale. But then it led me to the last part of my story, which is I had the Ghost Beach one of these, and I went to a vacation care. So kind of like the club again, but an actual club for kids. So it was like an after school care / during the holidays as well. So during the holidays, my parents worked, so it was like just easy to drop us off. But we wanted to go because they had like video games, like they had every game that you could think of at the time. Like when Kingdom Hearts first came out, that was like the biggest game. It was like $100 game. They had that on like every PlayStation screen at the time. So everyone was obsessed with it. And I remember when you would get dropped off to this place, they had to sign your name in, sign your name out. When you would leave, come and go. And this was the freaking folder they had opened up with all the kids' names written in here. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, there's a one of the book that I stared at for 40 minutes of that folder thing. So then the hunt began.
And you did
I remember
find
asking
it.
for
It took you a long time, but you found it.
I've got 7 of them now. If you follow me on Instagram, you would see the ridiculous video I made where I like opened up 2 more. But I got this many now, and I remember like asking for it, and they were like, "Oh no, so you can't." But why would you want it anyway? It's all written in. I was like, I don't care. I don't care if it's written in. I don't care if someone's drawn.
I don't care if someone drew
I
10,000 dicks in that. I want it.
I want it, and like I couldn't have it. And then I went to a collectible store, and here's the ironic thing: the lady always put the Goosebumps stuff aside for me to give to me. But then she had this out the back, and she used it to write down like her stock take notes when she would sell something. And I remember one day I was like looking at the back, and I was like, "Oh, God, can I have that?" And she's like, "Oh no, sorry, this is the one Goosebumps thing that I want to hold on to." And I'm like, "What is it about this freaking binder that people don't want to sell apart with at the time?" And I know how iconic it was in itself, the book, but I think a lot of the people that had them at the time were like parents of kids that are now grown up, and they were like holding on to it almost like a sentimental thing, like it was their kids at school or whatever. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't have this thing. I found a Ghost Beach one, Cuckoo Clock one, a Shrunken Head one, but the damn Slappy one just haunted me until I was 13. I would say I got my first 12 or 13 was when I got my first one, and now I have 7. You could say I found one every 3.5, 4 years. That's how freaking hard they are to find. But yeah,
What about you, Nick?
that's my story.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah. What about me?
Yeah.
I ain't got no Slappy binder. Oh.
I got no Slappy binder.
Oh. Man. Obviously, I started collecting back when they first started putting the toys, backpacks, all the stationary stuff out. I mean, I think if I remember right, my first item was actually the Slappy Inkster. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, I think they had a Cuddles one too, but obviously wanted the Slappy one because obviously the fact of disappearing ink was just so cool as a kid. So
it's like, I got your shirt. Hey, it's stained. And then
wait a minute.
it's gone. I was just kidding. Don't beat me up.
It's like the Roger Rabbit where like Marvin Acme shoots the ink on Eddie and he just grabs him. He's like, wait, look, it's gone.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's exactly like that. I just remember the commercial for those. It was like Inksters for vile ink that disappears in a flash, like that.
Oh yeah, and it was awesome, and I wish I could say I still have it. I have some things just get lost over time because parents sell it in garage sales or whatever most of the time without even telling you.
Yeah,
it's like, well, you don't need this no more, right? So, getting a quarter for that now. So yeah,
I'm gonna sell it for $1. For $1.
So I mean, I'm lucky to still have a good chunk of stuff, I guess, from when I was a kid. Because I actually remember like the catalog that I ordered, because it's the only way you could get them at the time anyway, was ordering through a catalog the masks that they finally came out with. So the Haunted mask was the first one I bought. But then I remember finding the horror in my local Walmart one Halloween. And I wish I could say that like you could still get Goosebumps in a Halloween aisle nowadays, because that was super awesome to find back in the day. I never found any of the costumes. I mean, I had to own them later when I got adult monies.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just remember that like when Target did that whole promotion, and they would just have like the whole. Because I found footage of this, like, I think a year or two ago, and it was just, like, 2 aisles of Goosebumps, like, books, tapes, clothing, all sorts of stuff. And there's, like, this big standee. It's, like, give me Goosebumps or something like that. And it's like, man, I wish I grew up in that time.
That was,
yeah, let me tell you, it was everywhere at the time. And it was amazing. I can remember jumping into some of these stores, especially around school time. Because again, there's so much stationary stuff that they came out with.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you constantly could get that back in the day, and now people are again trying to sell one pencil set of like 4 pencils for $80.
Yeah, hell no.
It's so
that's outrageous.
You know, funny story about the stationery. So my cousin said that at school they banned Goosebumps stationery because it was like it looked too much like toys. And kids were just playing with it and they were getting distracted from their work. And he said he remembers like he was at assembly and like they literally said, oh, so by the way, and at this point, parents had bought it all for their kids already. So they've already spent the money because it's like, oh, this Slappy alligator stapler and tape dispenser. So like, I mean, I've got a tape dispenser right handy here. Like that just looks like a toy. And that's a tape dispenser. So it's like, I can see why it was distracting, and parents literally bought all the stuff for the kids because they were like, "Oh, my kids love Goosebumps, so I'm going to buy them all the shit that goes with it, with the books." And he said he remembers the principal coming up and saying, "Oh, and by the way, we know it's popular, but all Goosebumps stationery items, and that is desk caddies, tape dispensers, staplers, pencil sharpeners. I think the only thing they were allowed Goosebumps was pencil cases and like pencils." But they said, and like the erasers and stuff, he said everything else was banned because the desk caddies apparently kids used to just like open and close Slappy's mouth like when they were bored. And I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah,
That's not what that looked like when you did that just then.
Yeah. But like, let's be honest.
Slappy's
Nick,
mouth.
if we could go back to the 90s, like if we could go back, we wouldn't be getting the merch. We would be going to these stores and saying, I am having that fucking display. Mm-hmm. Like, we would be taking the displays. We wouldn't care for the merch because we'd be like, well, we'll just get that later. I would be like, can I have the cardboard? Can I have that standee of Kurt? Like, we would be taking all this stuff.
You just walk into a store and be like, I want something Goosebumps. And they're like, well, what would you like? All of it. All of it. All of the Goosebumps.
All of it. Give me everything. Like,
stock.
He was like, are you looking for Goosebumps items? Yes. Which ones?
I go straight to Kmart. I go straight to Kmart and just grab like the whole stack of these, like just fill the trolley with only dummy binders. And they're like, "Are you serious?
Yes.
You have no fucking idea."
I'm dead
Maybe
serious.
like, okay,
Dead.
I am
serious.
dead serious. But like, there was actually a display stand for the Escape from Horrorland game with Jeff Goldblum, and I remember, I think I sent it to you guys or Nick on the chat. There was a random Australian show where this girl like knocks into it,
Yeah,
and it's
I'm
literally
wondering
like
what's
a display stand.
Yeah.
And it's got Escape from Horrorland written on the cardboard part. And I'm like, what? I don't understand why they didn't put the horror up the top of it, because that would have made more sense. But yeah, like I would be going back to get all that stuff before I grab the merch. 100%. Like I'd be getting all that. Like imagine going to Disneyland and grabbing all the like promotion for like the Disney show, like as if you wouldn't be grabbing that over like what was in the gift shop. You'd be like, I want the big,
I don't know,
those big massive drape.
I think the gift shop might have had Series 2 collectibles,
Mm-hmm.
in which case I would have snagged all them suckers up.
Yeah,
Oh, those two.
God, what it would have been like to just live in that era, and just
Mhm.
with the
We would-
knowledge that we have now.
We would know what to grab. We would be like, that's the thing, because our knowledge now, if we could go back for a day, we would know what to grab. We would grab the things that like are hard to find, and we'd leave all the common shit and be like, we'll get that later.
It's like
Like
that.
we'll pick that up later.
It's like that meme of like what girls would do with a time machine. They go and see like their grandmother. What boys would do with a time machine is, I want everything Goosebumps related.
Exactly.
Or if to get money, hey Nick, I know how we can get rich. We can do a Back to the Future 2 situation and get the sports. What was it? The sports
almanac?
betting thing. Yeah, we would just go and do that, and then we could just become multimillionaires, and we can buy all the Goosebumps stuff.
And
the
Mike,
only issue
Oh yeah, I can bet on
did
stock
that
and
Butterfly did I completely changed the future.
I don't care. I
Oh.
get Goosebumps.
I think so.
And Micah, you I mean, you kind of showed that you kind of started collecting right away.
Yep.
But recently, we've been able to send you some merchandise stuff, so your collection's growing too.
Yes, it is.
Hooray! You'll be one of us.
You got your
one
first,
of us.
your first
One of
board
us.
game.
One of us.
One of
One
us.
of us.
Google gobble, Google gobble.
It took me forever to start collecting the DVDs, for crying out loud. I didn't start collecting these until like October of 2023. So
I was gonna say October of last year.
that's when I started collecting the DVDs. Up until then, I'd only been doing the books because I could never like find these in like a thrift store or anything. So
He's a late
I
bloomer.
know.
He's a late bloomer. It's okay.
Yeah, he's a late bloomer, but we all get there in the end. We all do.
We do. We eventually all chase that.
Anyway.
Oh.
Alrighty, but yeah, I think that I just find myself being really fond of how I got into Goosebumps, and it's always cool to just think back on it, especially when you look at what you got now. And it's just like, wow,
Yeah.
all that started because of that.
And
'Cause
what
of
we're even
literally-
doing now. Like, who would have thought we would talk to people from the show
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
we all, loved and stuff.
Never-
So
If I ever told kid me that I'd be talking to people like Tim Jacobus or Catherine Long coming up, or like any of these people from the show or who worked on the series, like I would not have believed me.
I just
Yeah,
said, I'm crazy.
Exactly. I'm a
Yeah,
bit
it's-
crazy. Like,
I'm gonna be
it's
crazy.
it's
for
wild
a
to
while.
think about.
can we just say Amber? We are Amber Heard crazy. Can we just say that?
Especially
Because everyone knows exactly what we're talking about.
Because like the thing with me as well is like throughout my life I've kind of been on and off with Goosebumps collecting. Like I've been there would be moments where I'd be really into it, and then I would like just put them in a bin and stick them down in the basement for a couple of years, and then I'd get really back into it again, and then stick them back in the basement. And it wasn't until 2022 that I really started getting like hardcore about it again. When I found one of those retro tins at Books A Million, I ended up donating it to Goodwill for some reason, but.
Dude, the switch
Do
never
not
turns
Put
off.
do not put them in the basement ever again. Ever
Stay out of the
again.
basement.
Stay
Yeah,
out
and
of
also
the-
Stay out of there.
There was also times when I was a kid that my parents kind of took away my Goosebumps privileges because I would be too over obsessed with it.
Took away my Goosebumps privileges because I was bad.
I've never heard that before.
And I'm like,
It's like-
because I remember one of my classmates used to like sell me some of his books for like $1 a piece. And I remember one time he like promised me like because we got caught and our teacher was like, you can't sell books in school. So he was like, okay, just meet me after class and I'll give them to you.
Meet me behind the alley. Just be like,
And then-
that stuff.
Back alley Goosebumps.
Why do I imagine?
But the thing was, like, I met him after class and I was about to do them. He's like, oh yeah, sorry, we can't sell stuff in school, and refused to sell them to me. And so like my little self broke down into a teary tantrum because of it. And
I just imagine you being like, take the PlayStation 5, take the TV, but not the Goosebumps. And then they take it away and you're just like,
Here's a story I feel is good to leave off on, kind of going off of that. There was one time soon after I started getting into Goosebumps, and I could have swore when I was taking the trash out one night that there was someone standing on the side of our house. And it scared the shit out of me, and I ran and I pounded on our front door till my parents let me in, and I was so freaked out.
I locked you out?
No, I had gone out the back door, but I did not want to risk going through the garage again, so I went to the front door, and I banged on the door to let me in, and I got in, and I was so freaked out. And my parents like, if you're gonna be this freaked out, maybe we should stop having you read Goosebumps. I'm like, no.
Wait, so you say you were taking the trash out? You taking the trash out?
Yeah.
I just love your trash can.
It's like, what are you talking about? Go away.
See, my first thought ended up being Home Alone, personally, when Kevin went outside. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Right off the bat.
And
Love you, Macaulay Culkin.
We're going to end off this episode of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. Like I said, it's always just great to reflect on the early days of being a Goosebumps fan. And if you guys have some good stories about your first times discovering Goosebumps, leave them in the comments, because we really like hearing your guys' comments and hearing your stories if you ever have one to tell. So definitely go ahead and leave one in the comments below. And of course, make sure you follow the rest of my Goosebumps crew, Goosebumps Ossivan, Bjorn Panwick, Shawn Nick Shawn, the Ultimate Goosebumps Man, Michael Lilquist, on their social medias and their YouTubes, because they really, really, really do deserve it. And of course, give me a follow at the Goosebumps channel on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram if you want to keep up with what I'm doing, because I'm great too. I just figured out how absolutely selfish I sounded there. But yeah, go ahead and sub to the Goosebumps channel if you want to keep up with the Goosebumps videos that I post. And don't forget to follow the Goosebumps Crew YouTube channel, because that's where new episodes of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast are going to appear. And stay tuned. We got some amazing guests that are going to be on the podcast coming soon. We don't want to reveal them right now, but you guys are going to see what they are soon enough, and you guys are going to love them. So make sure you subscribe. And also, again, don't forget to check out our Discord server. Make sure to pledge to our Patreon if you guys want to support us. And all that good stuff is down in the description below. So, this has been the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. And from all of us here at the Goosebumps Crew Podcast, we want to wish you all to take care, stay safe, and have a very scary day.